So, the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers have arrested, so far as of last Wednesday, 308 illegal immigrants, and that's what Trump said he was going to do on his first day in office, was start arresting and deporting illegal aliens. Immigration authorities have been arresting hundreds of illegal immigrants who have committed violent crimes at this time. But if you're caught up in this, if they knock down the door and you just happen to be there and you haven't committed a violent crime, but you're here illegally, as the president's secretary said this morning, press secretary, that you're here, you're committing a crime too. You're a criminal also because you're in this country illegally. But they're looking for people mostly who've committed violent crimes, murder, rape, all different, robbery. And so they have deported hundreds so far. There's over 1.4 million immigrants residing in the United States illegally, and those are the ones that they're going to be prioritizing in these next few weeks. And Holman said that we're concentrating on the worst first. ICE is focusing on arresting public safety threats and national security threats, just as Trump promised. Now, as I said, some of them were rapists, some of them were murderers, some raped and assaulted children, and those are the ones that they're going after first. So I think we can all agree that this country is much safer with these particular illegal aliens being sent back to their countries. However, is it too little, too late? You see, there's an estimated 2.2 million illegal aliens in this country who are not fingerprinted and not vetted. We have no idea who they are or where they are. And among them, no doubt, are terrorists intent on harming this country. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said there's no way you can have an open border for 5 years and not have people in this country plotting against our people. So you have to understand, the borders are much more dangerous than people even imagine. First, we are the only country who has or does little to prevent people from just walking right through the front door. As of 2022, none of the countries in the world officially have open borders. Well, a few countries have open border agreements with a select few other countries. The majority of nations opt instead for border policies that place at least a few additional limitations on individuals' ability to enter or exit the country. These restrictions are typically intended to safeguard national security or preserve business ecosystems, according to the World Population Review website. Other countries, you see what they're concerned with? National security. Apparently we're not. And I'm not, listen, it seems as if the United States will just let anybody who wants to just enter our country without any problem whatsoever. And I might be exaggerating a little here, but states like Florida and Texas and Arizona have done what they could to stem the tide, but they're overwhelmed, and outmanned, quite frankly. Illegals are entering this country, and they're not only a danger to the people in this country, they're terrorists, they're drug dealers, they're sex trafficking, they're trafficking children back and forth across the border. So it's not just an illegal alien problem, it's a criminal problem. Criminal enterprise has entered into this country and is flourishing in this country. And along with those illegal aliens have come terrorists. I remember back when I worked on the railroad, and we're talking, 20 years ago, when we had an office in Port Newark, and we were right next to the Norfolk Southern Police Department, and I used to grab their magazines all the time and read them in the office, and there were articles in there then that spoke about drug traffickers bringing terrorists across the border, along with drugs and everything else. So unprotected, underprotected borders has allowed all of that to go on. It has allowed fentanyl to just flourish in this country, killing millions of people over the years. So this open border policy, I believe, was designed to, and almost did, destroy our country. And as we talked last time when we had the convergence of prophecy, it's believed that there's well over 1,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters already in this country. And listen, they're not here because they're here to see what the American dream's all about. They're here to bring America to its knees. And so, as dangerous as these open borders have been, believe it or not, there's legislators right now fighting against these deportations. And there's Hollywood actors who are clueless about what goes on in this country, who are crying out about this. You know, one that just is shocking to me, Selena Gomez. And actually, one of the congresswomen said, well, maybe we should deport you as well. But she's on social media saying, all my people are getting attacked. The children, I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise. Gomez said in a now deleted clip, which she captioned, I'm sorry, with a Mexican flag emoji next to it. Where were the tears for all the millions who have died from fentanyl overdoses over the years? Where are the tears for the people killed by illegal aliens? Like 20-year-old Kayla Hamilton, who was raped and killed in July 2022. She was autistic, by the way. Walter Javier Martinez has been convicted, sentenced to prison, and is believed to be a member of the MS-13 gang. What about 38-year-old Rachel Morin, who was killed in 2023 by Victor Martinez Hernandez, who's charged with her murder. Police said he illegally entered the United States. Or how about 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari, who was found strangled to death in Houston? And let's not forget Laken Riley, 22-year-old Augusta, Georgia University student who was murdered in 2024 while she was jogging at the university. The person who did that, Jose Antonio Ibarra, is a 26-year-old Venezuelan man who entered the United States illegally, and that's just to name a few. Hundreds have either been murdered, raped, assaulted, or robbed in this country by illegal aliens. Where are the tears for them? Where are the tears for them? Closing our borders and freezing foreign aid, which both are being done as we speak, reflects a change in this country from globalism to nationalism, as in the phrase, make America great again, right? Open borders worldwide are designed for a global economy and global governance. That was the whole idea of opening up all the borders, was that we could have one world at peace, right? How would that working out for us? In short, it's the New World Order. And this administration has at least slowed the establishment of a New World Order. Or has it? Another major change in policy is directed toward Israel. Trump lifted the hold that Biden put on those 2,000-pound bunker-busting bombs that we were supposed to have shipped over to them. Well, they are now on their way to Israel. And the reason that's important is because those are the very bombs necessary to bomb the Iranian nuclear site. God said to his prophet Jeremiah, and I will bring upon Elam the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and I will scatter them to all those winds, and there shall be no nation to which those driven out of Elam shall not come. Now, this prophecy has not yet been fulfilled. The actual location of Elam would be the very northern end of the Persian Gulf, which is now the west coast of Iran. And guess what sits down there on the west coast of Iran? The Bashar nuclear plant. And so a strike against the Bashar nuclear plant could very well cause the fulfillment of that prophecy. Another thing that's in the news lately are tariffs. Tariffs. Are you afraid of tariffs? No? A lot of people are, because they think we're going to have to pay much more for items shipped from other countries. So a tariff obviously does raise the price of certain items if it's applied, from other countries, but it's used right now more of a negotiation tool than a weapon, okay? Just like the president did with the president of Colombia. We had been sending 2 plane loads of illegal aliens back to Colombia when a deal the Colombian president agreed to do, right? While the planes are mid-flight, he decides he's going to renege on the deal, and he will not accept these illegal aliens any longer, so the plane has to spin around and come back to the United States. So Trump tells him that we're immediately placing a 25% tariff on all goods out of Colombia. And he said if the situation is unresolved within a week, that goes up to 50%. Now, people, if you saw the news, were losing their minds because Starbucks was now going to be $50 for a cup of coffee. But you know what happened? Once the Colombian president found out that we were placing tariffs on him, he sent 2 of his planes over here to pick up those very same illegal aliens. Listen, we're not talking about immigrants coming to this country for a new life. We're not talking about families coming here who want to make things better for their families. This entire country basically was founded by settlers and immigrants, right? We're talking about people who've come to this country who are drug traffickers, sex traffickers, and gang members. Some of the most vicious, violent gangs in the world have come here over our borders. And these are people who, if they had been properly vetted, would never have been allowed into this country. Now, Trump knows that he will hurt the American people deeply by imposing massive tariffs. And I don't think that's the end game here. But you also have to understand that America is being hurt daily by deficits and unbalanced trade agreements that there seem to be quite a few of. And the reason this is essential is because these unbalanced and deficit trade agreements are costing us billions. Take Canada, for instance. Soon to be number 51? For instance, Canada, right? We lose $200 billion annually, allowing them to import cars and lumber to our country, of which we do not need either of those things. We are perfectly capable of producing our own cars and our own lumber right here in this country. So paying Canada $200 billion a year is just helping keeping their economy afloat. And President Trump asked the soon-to-be former Prime Minister Trudeau what would happen if we stopped importing these goods from Canada. And he said, our economy will probably collapse. That's why the president told him, well, then you could be the 51st state of the United States and we'll take care of you. And I'm pretty sure he wants Wayne Gretzky to be the governor of Canada. So if Canada wants to become part of the United States, you guys are more than welcome. As a matter of fact, we will trade California for you, and you can just move right into that slot if you want. You can have warm weather for a change. Mexico is another country that we trade with at a deficit. And since they're primarily run by cartels, any trade we do with them is benefiting the cartels anyway, right? On the other hand, talking about a balanced trade agreement, England. We have a balanced trade agreement between England where both sides benefit from the trade. And that's what we're looking for. Now, the president says, what he's saying basically is we are done subsidizing other countries at our detriment. In fact, he has suspended foreign aid to about 8 nations until we figure out what our foreign policy is going to be there. The next change he made was that there are only 2 genders. Go figure. I would never have known. You know, he signed over 40 executive orders his first day in office. And included in those executive orders were removing transgenders from prisons, from women's sports, and from the military. He's put a ban again on transgender serving in the military. He halted the DEI program that promoted people because of their particular persuasion instead of their proficiency in the job that they hold. So the president has fulfilled promises, and one of which was that there would only be two genders. Guess what? Just as God created them, right? Male and female, he created them. Here's where it gets interesting. AI and data centers. In his speech at Mar-a-Lago just days before the inauguration, I heard him introduce a gentleman by the name of Hussein Sajani. And he calls him a very respected gentleman. And of course he is, because he's from the Emirates, and he is a billionaire businessman and founder of the property development company DAMAC Properties. Trump said, "I'm thrilled to announce today that the DAMAC will be investing at least $20 billion over a short period of time into the United States, and that they may even more than double that amount of money." You know, I didn't do very well in math in school, but if you take the $20 billion that they're looking to invest, the $20 billion we're going to save when we stop importing cars and lumber from Canada, and the $40 billion we're going to save when we stop sending money to the Taliban, that's $80 billion a year, right? I want to kind of, well, we're getting close now, close to the national deficit, but there's more. He went on to say, "We have many more people who want to invest in our country. Now, this investment made by DAMAC will support massive new data centers across the Midwest and the Sun Belt areas to keep America on the cutting edge of technology with AI. AI, Trump said, is going to be a very hot item in the coming years, as you know. The project's first phase will be in Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, and Louisiana." This is important because you got to read between the lines here, right? Now, it wasn't always so. It was not always so. I think if President Kennedy was alive today, he would be more Republican than he is Democrat by the way they run that party today. But the Democratic Party in the recent years has been more concerned with funding special interests than investing in our own country. And investors like Hussein Sajani would never consider investing like this in this country before this, at least not to this extent. So under this new administration, many more billionaire investors will step in and invest in our country because there is a potential here for them to become even wealthier. And we're all about making the rich richer, aren't we? But listen, it's all Reagan called the trickle-down economics, right? If the country's doing well, that trickles down to everyone, and everyone is doing well. And people can pay their bills because they don't have to take a loan out to go food shopping anymore. So Trump says that these data centers will be constructed relatively quickly, and he wants to move to cut through a lot of the red tape of doing that. He seems to be in a big hurry to get these things put up. So what do data centers do? Well, they collect data. I know that's profound, but that's the simple answer. Data centers collect data. What data? I'm not sure what data they will be collecting, but there's going to come a time on this earth when the Antichrist will want to control the population. And making sure that we comply, or the population complies with his mandates, he will have to have some help in controlling that. And that help will come through data collection centers and AI, which will play a very big part in the end times. So those who do not comply with these rules or take his mark will be sorted out through these data collection centers and AI. And of course, they will not be able to buy, sell, or trade. There's only one way you can tell if someone isn't doing what you're telling them to do, and that's by keeping that data, right? So these data centers being set up may sound wonderful. It's a $200 billion investment coming into the United States. But it could be the beginning of the end, couldn't it? So we're seeing the Antichrist system still being set into place right before our very eyes. Now, I'm not saying that that's what these data centers are being built for now. I'm not saying that. But what they're being built for now, they very well may be used for something very much different under the control of the Antichrist. So keep an eye on this, because there's more to come. The next change, drill, baby, drill. According to the president, there are 625 million acres of prime drilling real estate in this country. To hear Trump describe this, that's as big as the ocean itself. But that gives the United States more oil than Saudi Arabia. And according to some estimates, we are sitting on $40 to $50 trillion in revenue from that oil. That's more than our national debt right now, which, by the way, is at $35 trillion. And not drilling for it. We've been throwing that revenue right out the window. It's like when I used to take my kids on vacation. It was like driving down the road with the windows open, just throwing money out the window. In comparison, Saudi Arabia, one of the wealthiest countries in the world and one of the largest generators of oil exports, in 2023, its oil exports totaled 248 billion United States dollars. You know, listen, the reason inflation is the way it is today and the prices in the grocery stores are so high, it's pretty basic economics. The cost of fuel has gone up exponentially, raising the cost of the products that are delivered by trucks and train. You don't have to be a genius to figure this out. And gas is so high because we stopped drilling for oil 4 years ago. So once we start drilling again, gas prices should come down, lowering the price of gas and diesel fuel for truckers and rail yards, and lower fuel prices will eventually translate into lower prices at the food store. That's not going to happen overnight, but eventually it will. At its current rate of consumption, the United States has 227 years of recoverable oil, according to the Institute for Energy Research latest North American Energy Inventory. So we can go another 220-some years with our oil reserves. The way they describe it is that there are seas of oil just waiting to be tapped. Texas, the home of Eagle Ford, Permian, and Bennett shale oil play, holds over 60 billion barrels of shale oil alone. That's more than the untapped oil in all of China. Vast sums of oil are also beneath the ground in North Dakota, where the Bacon shale oil play is located. Thanks to the shale oil boom, the United States now has more oil reserves than Russia, which is estimated to have 256 billion barrels of untapped oil. The next richest countries in terms of oil after that is Saudi Arabia, 212 billion, Canada, soon to be the state of the United States, 167 billion, Iran, 143 billion, and Brazil, 120 billion. Listen, oil, I believe, is the hook in the jaw of Russia that turns them around and brings them against Israel. You know, if the U.S. starts outproducing Russia, and we start cutting into Russia's profits, and Israel discovers, as I believe it already has, that they are sitting on the mother lode of oil reserves, it could create the perfect storm. Because Russia counts on that income. Maybe that I believe is what forces Russia to move against Israel for its oil reserves. Next, the Panama Canal and the Gulf of America. Now, you may have heard that the president is trying to take back the Panama Canal. Problem is, the Panamanians have an issue with that. When the Panama Canal was completed, apparently it would never have been completed without our help and the thousands of lives that were lost building that thing. But the agreement was that the United States would be treated differently, better, fairer than all the other nations, right? It should have been. We built it. But It cost our ships more to cross the Panama Canal. It cost our Navy more than the navies of the world to cross the Panama Canal. China has been running roughshod over the Panama Canal. They've established themselves on both ends of it, causing problems. In addition to these issues, the Panama Canal needs upgrading. And so, as bold as you could possibly be, the Panamanian government wants $3 billion from the United States to help with these upgrades. Now, the Panama Canal generates some $5 billion yearly, representing 4% of Panama's GDP, which is probably why they don't want to give it up. But that $5 billion in revenue could be the very reason why we have our eyes on it, right? He also wants to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Now, that's a little bit more doable, and it really doesn't change anything. The only thing it does is change the maps, because Mexico is still going to call it the Gulf of Mexico. We're just going to call it the Gulf of America on our side, right? Just like the Rio Grande. We call it the Rio Grande. Mexico calls it Rio Bravo. Same place, we just call it different names. But if approved, the United States could start updating the maps and official documents, naming this the Gulf of America. And the White House said that the Gulf is critical to America's trade, natural resources, and tourism, but other than that, it plays no real significance in shaping the country's economy. And Trump agrees that renaming the Gulf would reflect the importance of the Gulf to the United States. So it seems as if this new administration is just trying to consolidate our resources and in the process acquire new revenue resources, all in an effort to make America great and prosperous. But to what end? To what end? In that same speech at Mar-a-Lago, he said, "We are entering into the golden age of America because we have resources no one else has. We are at the beginning of a golden age of business." Interesting. You know, he wants to replace windmills with natural gas. He stated that wind energy is many more times expensive than clean natural gas. He's also halting the mandate that was coming into effect soon on electric cars. You know, you would all have to drive electric cars. Well, he's putting a stop to that because of the infrastructure it would take to run electric cars. And he says we can't do both. We can't create the infrastructure to run electric cars and have an infrastructure to run AI. And AI takes top priority over electric cars. To be quite honest with you, I was looking forward to an electric car. I was just one you could get in, program it, and go to sleep. And just wake up at your destination. But I guess that's not going to happen now. So the plan is to build plants that will produce enough electricity to run all the AI requirements that are going to come down the pike. He went on to say that China has already begun building these plants that run on coal. So the president is moving very quickly ahead with AI, which I believe is going to bring us to the end. Now, the United States is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. At best, we may be among the nations protesting Russia's attack of Israel. So how do we go from supporting Israel to offering no more than lip service when she faces our greatest threat? So let's say we do begin drilling again, and we start investing money into this country. Businesses start investing money into this country, and this country becomes more profitable than it was at the end of World War II, and it was a pretty profitable time. We pay off our national debt. How would you like to get an oil check every year? Just like they do in Saudi Arabia. You could put that gold toilet in you've always wanted. What about the $40 to $50 trillion that oil will generate? Perhaps the reason America is not in Bible prophecy is because America gets to the point where they're so prosperous, beyond imagination, that we don't want to get involved in anyone else's problems. That we truly do consolidate everything into this country. And we become so self-sufficient and self-reliant that we don't want to venture out to help anyone else, including Israel. That certainly is a possibility, isn't it? Something I never thought of until we started talking about all this money coming into this country. Money does some very strange thing to people. Listen, it's exciting to see these changes. We've been praying for some of these changes, right? We've been praying that there would be an end to sex trafficking, to children trafficking. We've been praying for all of that, an end to fentanyl coming into this country. So we're grateful, and thank you, Lord, that this is finally being addressed. But Donald Trump, as president of the United States, does not mean that Satan's plan to enthrone the Antichrist has come to an end. Now, we can make all the plans we want, but God's plan is going to be accomplished no matter what we do. Now, we may be getting a reprieve for 4 years. However, God is still moving forward with his plan for his son to rule and reign on this earth. And we continue to see the kingdom of the Antichrist being set up right before our very eyes, even under this administration. So it may very well have been part of God. And I never pretend to know what God is doing. It's fun to just stand back and watch him do it, though, isn't it? But it could be his plan to use this administration to speed things up even more. So we keep looking up, because that's where our redemption comes from, not from Washington. We keep our eyes on Jesus, not on the President of the United States. Amen?